We are back after a significant time away, but I thought I'd pop in to give an update on one of the UFC antitrust lawsuit cases, and that is the case of Phil Davis. TKO is seeking to move to dismiss Phil Davis's lawsuit against the company as a result of not having standing. So let's get into it a little bit. As we know, Phil Davis fought in the UFC, but now is a member of the Professional Fighters League. The lawsuit piggybacks off of the Kung Lee antitrust lawsuit, which was filed in 2014. Took a long time to get through the court system and finally settled last year for $375 million. As a result of that lawsuit and settlement, several other lawsuits have been filed by the same law firm related to the UFC's core businesses, which they believe violated the Sherman Antitrust Act related to anti-competitive conduct within the MMA industry. Now, we know about the Cajun Johnson lawsuit. We know about the Phil Davis lawsuit, which we'll talk about, and the Cirkunov lawsuit, which also covers a certain section of fighters at this particular point. The interesting part of the Phil Davis lawsuit is it's for injunctive relief, meaning that it's not seeking specifically monetary damages, but it's looking for a change within the industry of mixed martial arts, specifically related to contracts which Davis and Davis's lawyers, as well as the class that Phil Davis is in, believes are coercive and restrictive and prevents the mobility of the fighters from being able to make money. Now, his proposal, I believe, relates to making contracts shorter, perhaps just a year to be with organization. Now, TKO, the organization that now owns the UFC, Zuffa, has filed a motion to dismiss that particular lawsuit last month, this past September. And Davis filed his opposition. Zuffa filed a reply brief on October 9th. Both parties have requested a hearing on the motion to dismiss the lawsuit so they can argue in front of a judge, which would be Richard Boulware, the merits or opposition to the particular pleading, which would dismiss the Phil Davis case. Now, TKO's argument on why it should be dismissed is, well, twofold, but mainly one primary issue. And the fact of the matter is that Phil Davis does not have standing. He doesn't have an actual injury and therefore cannot bring the lawsuit. TKO brings up the fact that he has extinguished his claim by signing on with the settlement of the Kung Lee case. Now, Davis was a part of the class of fighters that is going to receive or has received compensation from Zuffa, from the UFC, as a result of the $375 million settlement. So TKO argues, well, he can't bring this lawsuit because he's already settled his case. He signed a settlement agreement stating that he cannot bring another lawsuit because he settled the case. Well, fair enough argument. However, Davis's lawyers argue that in fact he did not settle the claims that he's currently bringing. Rather, he had the fact that the UFC and Zuffa continue on with these coercive contracts, that the damages continue, and and they are ongoing because the UFC hasn't changed its business practices. Interesting, interesting argument, and I kind of go into the fact that there are semantics related to the filing of the settlements, specifically related to when and where, what time frame the settlement goes into in its settlement language versus what Davis believes is an ongoing issue that persists within the industry. Davis kind of goes into the fact that that he does have standing, and the arguments are the issues within the MMA industry are ongoing. Specifically, he talks about the fact that even though he is with the PFL, Professional Fighters League, he has received suppressed compensation due to defendants' unlawful conduct, meaning the fact that the industry itself mirrors the UFC contracts, and as a result, he's receiving suppressed compensation from the PFL due to the fact that the contracts are skewed in favor of the promoter. Now, UFC obviously shoots back, claiming what is called in antitrust an umbrella theory, meaning that in this case, TKO argues that the claim of Davis's damages is too attenuated. There's not a proximate cause from TKO to Davis's current injury he's claiming. So basically, he's saying that PFL, he's getting paid from the PFL, but it's suppressed compensation because the UFC has UFC's contracts has done this to the industry. Now, Davis argues that he has to take lower pay from the PFL due to the fact that UFC's restrictive contracts cause this standard. Now, the umbrella theory seeks to hold price fixers liable for harm allegedly flowing from the illegal conduct, even though the price fixing defendants received none of the illegal gains and were uninvolved in the competitors' pricing decisions. That's one of the cases cited by TKO. So basically, it's too attenuated. Someone else is causing this issue for Davis, but you're suing TKO. Okay, so there's that. TKO also states that Davis's only theory is that he changes to UFC's contracts might mean more competition among MMA promoters, which in turn might cause PFL to pay him more. That speculation does not satisfy Article 3. So they argue that the fact that Davis left the UFC in 2015 and still was able to have a career, the fact that he's suing because the PFL is paying him lower wages is not is a non sequitur, not really a good argument to sue the UFC, and for Article 3 standing, meaning someone could bring a lawsuit in the court. Plaintiff seeking injunctive relief must show a concrete threat that he himself will again be subject to the challenged conduct, not mere past exposure, which TKO argues is the sole premise for Davis's argument and for bringing the lawsuit. Now, going back to whether a hearing will happen, it's up to Judge Boulware whether or not he wants to have a hearing on this case. He could definitely make a decision based on the filings here. It'll be an interesting decision by the court as far as the injunctive relief issue versus monetary damages. Injunctive relief is something that I don't know if Zuffa had prepared for in terms of whether or not an actual lawsuit would be filed. It's just seeking injunctive relief versus seeking monetary damages. Now, obviously, the lawsuit is interesting from the fact that we're not talking about monetary damages, which Zuffa would argue has been already addressed in the legal settlement, or Caden Johnson or Sirkinov, which we'll get to in future legal submissions. But we're talking here about changing specifically within the industry contracts for MMA. So that's a big thing. So it's Jason Cruz with legal submission. We'll continue to follow. Have a great day.